My name is John Meyerson. I am proud to be here to represent CLEAR, the Coalition for Labor Engagement and Accountable Revenues. CLEAR Coalition feels that it's important that we have sustainable revenues going forward. I'm not going to speak for a long time because folks are voting on a budget. And they're voting on the spending now, which is important, and next week they're going to be voting on revenue. And those of us in the CLEAR Coalition very much would like to see a responsible shale tax be included in that revenue package. Something that the majority of Pennsylvanians support across the Commonwealth. It's something that's been talked about for a long time, and it's something that its time is past due and its time has come. So we wanted to start off. We have a lot of folks who want to speak. Don't worry, not everybody here is going to speak. But before I introduce introduce the members of the CLEAR Coalition, APSCUF, and I want to talk about them because they brought some of their people here from the state system of higher education, SEIU, AFSCME, both AFTPA and PSCA, both public school unions, the United Food and Commercial Workers, which I am happy to be a lifelong member of, as well as the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO. So on behalf of all those folks, we want to welcome, and I'd like to get started with Senator Jay Costa, the minority leader in the Senate.
Thank you, John. Thanks, buddy. Thank you very much, John. And let me first start by saying thank you very much for the CLEAR Coalition and the work that they do here in Harrisburg. Many folks don't see the conversations that take place week in and week out, and the advocacy of the men and women who are part of that organization and part of that coalition, the work that they do to make certain that everybody is working on the same page as best we can and gathering intelligence and developing strategies that are going to allow us to be able to do what needs to be done here in Harrisburg to address the important issues. So John, thank you and everyone who's here from the CLEAR Coalition. I also want to say that this is a really important issue. As John indicated, we're now facing the stage where we're trying to develop the revenue package in order to support the budget that, quite frankly, just moments ago we passed in the Senate. It's a $31.996 budget appropriation bill that I was very proud to support because it makes the investments which we think are important. Certainly important to the people of Pennsylvania, but also important to the folks who are here as part of the CLEAR Coalition, and particularly the folks who are here from APSCUF because they were beneficiaries of some additional resources in the state system. We were able to continue to make investments in education. We were able to make certain that we put resources back into programs that allow us to grow jobs in Pennsylvania. Proven job development programs like the Ben Franklin Fund and other programs relating to innovation and manufacturing in Pennsylvania. Those are critically important programs that needed to be restored in this budget that came from the House to the Senate. We were able to do that, as well as holding the line and making investments in things like many of our human service programs, and certainly working to make certain that we took steps to continue to fight the fight against opioid and heroin addiction. All those things were great to be able to do, and I was proud to stand up and support it along with my colleagues. But now the tough work begins. As my colleague Senator Schwank said on the floor today, now the hard work starts, and we have to come to grips with how we're going to fund this budget. We believe strongly, along with the governor and so many others, that Pennsylvania must work to make certain that we provide an extraction tax that's part of the solution to our revenue package. We've said it for a number of years. We believe this needs to be part of the solution. And I would tell you folks, the industry is beginning to prosper. But in Western Pennsylvania, I can tell you that we are developing a cracker facility. And what created the ability to create this cracker facility was tens of millions of dollars in tax credits are going to be provided to the Shale Corporation to build that facility. That facility is going to be the place where the shale industry, the Marcellus industry, will be able to bring their product. We are developing a place, a marketplace for the industry to bring their product. We're paying for that, we're accelerating that process, and we're investing along those lines. The least that the industry can do is be part of the conversation and be part of the solution about helping us pay for the things we need to do here in Pennsylvania. We're giving tens of millions of dollars to them. the least they can do is be part of the solution that we need to talk about. That's why I'm very proud to stand here with my friends in the legislature, House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, and also our friends in the Clear Coalition. So thank all of you. John, thank you for organizing today's event.
Thank you, Senator Costa. As I said, there's a lot of folks here, and a lot of people are very busy. So at this point, I also want to make clear that the Clear Coalition is not endorsing at this point any one of the number of bills that call for a Marcellus shale tax. At this point, we are endorsing the principle. I say that because I know a number of the people standing behind me have bills, and they're standing behind me, so it's a sensitive situation. Right now, I'd like to bring up to the microphone gentleman from Delaware County who also has one of these bills, State Representative Jamie Santora. Jamie.
Thanks, John. Thanks to the Clear Coalition for organizing this press conference. My delegation came together, the 5 Republican representatives from Delaware County, and tried to put forward 2 responsible shale tax bills. They include many provisions that will benefit the industry. The reason I say that it'll benefit the industry is because things can move quicker for them and allow them to be able to get drilling and continue with the different processes that go on with DEP. Extend permit terms, multi-well pad permitting, conditional permitting, and permitting audits in their Southwest Regional Office, all things that they're looking for. Another thing that we focused on is when the shale industry is doing well, they can afford to pay a little more, and when they're not, they'll pay a little less. So we did a step tax program, so if they're making up to $2.50 per unit, it'll be a 3% tax. And then it'll go from $2.51 to $3. It'll be a 4%, and at $3 plus 5%. So again, when the shale industry is doing well, there's a little more opportunity to bring revenue in. But what's important also is we all acknowledge that they do pay a tax. That is an impact fee. You can call it what you want, but a tax is a tax. If the government's charging it and they're paying it, it's a tax. So we are netting that out of this severance tax bills that we have proposed, and we're netting out the post-production cost. There's still revenue to be had in all of our proposals, and it's something that's necessary. It's sustainable revenue. It'll help our budget this year and for many budgets to come, so we can stop having these discussions of where to get revenue from. We've got to continue to come up with other sources rather than increasing the personal income tax and sales tax, which nobody wants to do, as it hits the pockets of every single Pennsylvanian. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Santora. Thank you for your work on this issue. As I said, there's a lot of folks here, a lot of issues, but we're going to keep moving along. But before I do it, let me just recognize who's here. Some of the folks are going to be called on to speak, some might not. But you met Representative Santora, Standing Gene DiGirolamo, Representative Charlton and Quinn, and Madeline Dean, and Kate Harper from Montgomery County. And on this side, we have also Senator Schwank and Senator Street. So moving on, I'd like to ask Madeline Dean to come up and say a few words.
Thank you very much. I'm Madeline Dean, also from Montgomery County, state representative for the last 5 years. I'm delighted to stand here with the Clear Coalition, to stand with workers, educators, people who want to help grow our economy and reasonably balance our budget. I am one of the people who has had multiple proposals for a reasonable tax on the extraction of shale gas. It is my belief that it is our precious resource. If you take a look at our Constitution, Article 1, Section 27, it is part of our public estate. And in any one year, the industry takes, for profit, as much as $10 billion out of the ground. Since 2009, had we been imposing a modest extraction tax, we would have collected in revenues, recurring revenues, more than $2 billion. My proposal this year mirrors what the governor and others have called for, and what I am delighted about is take a look at this group here. It's bipartisan, it's bicameral, we get it. It is a reasonable way to bring in sustainable repeat revenues, and it is the right thing to do by way of public policy as well. I've been happy to co-sponsor Kate Harper's bill. I believe your dollars, and you have co-sponsored my initiatives, leaving the impact fee in place, taking a reasonable extraction tax. It is June 30th. The Senate has just passed an important budget. We're going to be considering it and voting on it in the House later today. It adds incredibly important investments to education, to human services, to the opioid crisis, just to name a few. This is what we need to do. So I'm encouraged to see this bicameral, bipartisan, and labor movement that says it's time to take a reasonable extraction tax. It's time to stop subsidizing an industry at the expense of what's important to grow our economy, to grow good-paying jobs. Thanks very much.
Thank you. You're hearing a lot of important words that are important to CLEAR. You're hearing bipartisan. You are hearing sustainable. You are hearing accountable. You are hearing revenue. That's what it's about. We're here in the middle of a budget negotiations, and it's been said, and it's true, a budget is a moral document. You have to make decisions for what's best for the Commonwealth, and then you have to find ways to fund them. We have a great group of legislators here who are swimming upstream in order to get this funded. And at this point, I would like to bring up Judy Schwank, Senator from Berks County.
Thank you, John. I, too, am really proud to stand with the CLEAR Coalition. Look, the hard work does begin now. This is an unusual budget process, but what we're looking at are an array of revenue resources, and many of them are quick fixes, one-time shots at getting some money in, and not sustainable, not something that will continue to grow and to bring revenue to us so that we're not scrambling every year to try to find the dollars that we need to invest in the things that we must. I think we've come up with a good spend plan, but now we've got to put together a good revenue plan. You know, we've talked about borrowing, many forms of borrowing. We've talked about gambling expansion. Many of these things we know, one, they have to be paid back, or two, in the case of gambling, they never fulfill the promise that we expect in terms of revenues. It just never seems to be able to provide the resources that we need, and perhaps it shouldn't. I don't think we necessarily want to look at something like gambling to help support our Commonwealth. But look, the natural gas is a natural resource. That's been the history of Pennsylvania. We use our natural resources and we know to use them wisely. And this is a way to do that with a modest excise tax. I like some of the proposals that I've heard today, looking at not only using that to invest in the general fund, but also to invest in making sure that we are able to work with this industry to be able to be sure that we keep the jobs, that we protect our natural resources. That's not about exploitation. It's about using it wisely and moving forward with a plan that will help everyone in Pennsylvania. They call us a Commonwealth for many reasons, but certainly this is one of them. We have something here that is a bountiful natural resource. Let's use it wisely, but let's also think to it as something that we can use to benefit every single one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Schwank. And while we're over in the Senate, I'd like to bring up Senator Sharif Street, Philadelphia.
I too am proud to stand with the CLEAR Coalition. I think it's impressive that we have a bicameral, bipartisan coalition of folks who are talking about including in our revenue package going forward revenue from shale that will be recurring It would allow us to responsibly address our chronic budget shortfalls. It speaks to using, as Senator Schwenk talked about, natural resources, which are part of how we should fund the budget. It's not a one-time gimmick or fix. It makes it ultimately, having sustainable revenue and not one-time fixes will improve our bond rating. It'll improve our debt. It'll reduce our debt service, and it'll make us a more fiscally stable and responsible Commonwealth. We have to, at some point, begin to address revenue in a way that allows us to fund the important priorities that we care about, like public education and providing services to Pennsylvanians, and keeping people safe. Those things have to be paid for. And the shale industry has benefited from Pennsylvania's great resources, and we're just asking them to contribute like other industries to give back. And I think that and moreover, it is a responsible way to address our revenue going forward. And it's great that we've gotten together and we have come up with what our spending priorities should be in this budget. But now, as we turn our focus on how we pay for it, I think we need to begin to explore paying for things in a fiscally sustainable and responsible way, and that, along with all of the other things we need to do, is one of the most important things, because if we don't do that, then the bottom will eventually fall out of everything else we're doing. And so I'm really proud that the Clear Coalition is moving forward on this issue, bringing people together and helping to create some consensus around responsible, sustainable revenue through a reasonable shale excise tax. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharif. And now we've already talked about this being bipartisan. Now I'd like to bring up the person who, if there was a bipartisan award in the General Assembly of Pennsylvania, it would be retired now after being given for I don't know how many straight years to State Representative Gene DiGirolamo, Bucks County.
Thank you, John. Just proud to stand here with the members of the House and the Senate and the Clear Coalition and pushing for this important issue. There's a marker in the floor in back of us there where Teddy Roosevelt came in 1906 to dedicate this beautiful Capitol building. And I look at my good friend Bill out there. Bill, we haven't been fighting for a shales tax since 1906, but boy, it seems like it's been that long. This is way, way overdue, my friends. Now, I have a bill, it's House Bill 1401, and many of the other members up here, has been mentioned, also have a bill. This is going to happen. We're going to get this done. I hope we can get it done next week, but it's going to happen sooner or later. Pennsylvania is the only large Marcellus Shale gas-producing state that does not have a Marcellus shale tax. Imagine that. We're the only state out of about 20 states that does not have a shale tax. We have an impact fee, and it's working good. The people like it. We're the impact fee. We need to leave the impact fee in place, but we also have to put a tax, a drilling tax, on top of the impact fee, something that is responsible and something that is reasonable. Now, if you hear people on the other side of the issue, you would not imagine that the companies that are drilling here in Pennsylvania, you would imagine that they are going broke. They are not going broke, my friends. They are some of the largest, most profitable corporations in the United States of America. And they're here in Pennsylvania, and they should be paying their fair share. Imagine what we could do with the revenue. Education, human services. There are so many needs in our state, and as Representative Dean says, if we were to have a responsible shale tax in place, we would have already raised $2 billion. It's time to get it done. If this bill came up for a vote in the House of Representatives, I guarantee you there would be 50 or 60 Republicans in the House that would vote for something that's reasonable and responsible. Let's get the bill up for a vote. Let's do it. We need this in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. So we're getting to the end, and before we close, I would like to bring up, and I think he's going to be more subdued than usual because he's tired, because he is the chair of the minority chair, the Democratic chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Vince Hughes.
Thank you. Well, it is good to be here. I am proud to be here to stand with this coalition, the Clear Coalition. And yeah, I'm a little exhausted. We finished it up about 2 o'clock this morning, and we're back on the floor at 9. But I'm not too exhausted to ask for fairness. I'm not too exhausted to ask for an investment. I'm not too exhausted to ask that these, as Representative DiGirolamo said, some of the most powerful, wealthy corporations in the world pay their fair share. You go out into downtown Harrisburg or downtown wherever you may be from, and there'll be 4th of July parades in the next couple of days, and every business that you see, every little neighborhood store, every little business you see, they are paying their fair share. They're paying their taxes. When we walk around White Marsh and for the parade, or we walk around Conshohocken, or we walk around Philly or Pittsburgh, or wherever we may be walking around, or in Bucks County, wherever we may be on July 4th, everybody's paying their fair share. This one big entity is not. And that is not fair. So this is very much an issue of fairness. And someone will remind you, and it's been talked publicly before, you know, in the budget of 2010, this is how long this fight has been going on. In the budget of 2010, one of the leaders in my side of the building said to the then governor, Governor Rendell, Governor, it's July, and we're not going to get the shale tax done right now, but I guarantee you in October, when we come back in October of 2010, we're going to get it done. Well, October 2010 came and went. And October 2011 came and went. And October 2012 came and went. And 13 and 14, been a lot of Octobers that have come and gone, and we still don't have that shale tax. They've got to pay their fair share. And folks say that the business is struggling. Folks say that the business is the shale business is rough, it's tough, it's tight. But this past April, not too long ago, the Independent Fiscal Office in their April 2017 report said that a modest shale tax, the one that the governor proposed, 6.5%, and that's modest, would put us in the middle of the pack of all states in the nation that are taxing shale extraction, a severance tax. A modest tax would yield, and write these numbers down, folks. In 17-18, $368 million. In 18-19, $712 million. In 19 and 20, $752 million. In 2021, $912 million. And 21-22, $1.15 billion. Now, I'm not making it up. The Independent Fiscal Office put those numbers together. Those are their numbers, their analysis, their bipartisan. So, look, let's tax the shale. It's about time. It's about time they pay their fair share. Let's tax the shale and fund the jobs that need to be created in Pennsylvania. Let's tax the shale and fund the schools that we need to have in every corner of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that are 21st century schools. Let's tax the shale and fund our environment. Let's tax the shale and fund the opioid fight, the fight against opioid addiction. Let's tax the shale and fund our child care programs. Let's tax the shale and fund the Commonwealth and be fair about how we're dealing with businesses in Pennsylvania. It is wrong. It is wrong. It is wrong, morally wrong, financially wrong, that this one major industry has been able to take a walk for years while everybody else is making their fair and appropriate contribution. They're holding us back in terms of moving forward to drive Pennsylvania forward. Let's tax the shale and fund the Commonwealth. Let's be fair about it. Let's be right about it. Let's do the right thing for the people of the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Okay, you heard it from both sides of the state, from both sides of the Capitol, from both parties. We need the revenue We need to fund services that our residents, that our citizens of the Commonwealth both need and deserve. We need to protect the jobs of our public workers, the health and safety of the people who provide for the citizens of the Commonwealth every single day. And so we heard it. It's time to pass the shale. And before I end, we almost have quorum. We could probably vote this thing down here right now. We've been joined by Steve McCarter, Perry Warren, Leanne Kruger-Branicki, Carolyn Comita, and Maureen Madden. So we'd like to thank everybody who came out in support. We would like to thank the members of the working press for coming out and covering this. And the Senate voted the spending bill. It's going over to the House. They have important business to do. And then it's 4th of July weekend. And then let's come back on Wednesday and gosh darn get this done. Thank you.